Please, hide me. The person who visited my apartment late at night was the top secretary of our company who seemed to be battered. Why would such an unreachable beauty, whom I had never even spoken to, come to me? I invited her into my apartment and listened to her story, but I was shocked to learn her true identity. Hey John, look. It's Sarah from the secretary department. During lunch, my colleague Mike whispered as we entered the employee cafe. In a corner by the window, a beautiful woman was having a lunch meeting with President Johnson. As they got up to leave, they passed right by our table. Sarah is really stunning. She's the top secretary in the department. Quite the aspiration. Mike watched Sarah's retreating figure with a dreamy look. In a navy pantsuit and high heels, Sarah walked gracefully, drawing admiring glances from both male and female employees. Even among the highly accomplished secretaries, Sarah stood out. A graduate of Stanford University, fluent in 5 languages. She was not only the president's secretary but also served as an interpreter in diplomatic meetings with foreign dignitaries. On top of that, she had the looks of a model or actress. Despite her high status, she was known in the company as a quiet and modest yet highly capable secretary. Give it a rest. She's out of our league. I told Mike, who sighed and said, she's a distant dream. Our department has no interaction with the secretary department. We'll probably never have anything to do with her. Mike said this with a faraway look. My name is John. I've been working at this company for 4 years since graduating from college. I work in the planning and PR department of a trading company. After 4 years, I've gotten used to the work and have stable relationships. I'm quite comfortable now. Everyone has their own way of spending their free time. Some colleagues go out for drinks after work, some head straight to the gym, and some go home to study for certifications to advance their careers. John, a new teppanyaki place opened near the office. Let's go tomorrow after work. John, come with me for ramen. John, I want to check out this crepe place I saw in a gourmet book. Mike's plans usually involve his hobby of food touring. I have my own plans, so I reluctantly join him about once in 10 times. Since I often turn him down, his food touring results are starting to show around his waist. You haven't been hanging out much lately, John. At least come out the day before a day off. What's up with you? Mike complained. Indeed, for about 6 months after joining the company, I often hung out with Mike after work, but that gradually decreased. There's a reason for that. I had found something. Something I pour all my time outside work and sleep into. I always commute by train. On weekends, after work, I board the train at the station near the office, pass my local station. Get off 3 stations ahead, go through a dim alley, and find an old mixed-use building. Descending into the underground area of that building, there's a rusty door. There's no sign outside. But when you open the door, a different world unfolds. Cheers and applause suddenly fill your ears, and the musty smell unique to underground spaces makes my heartbeat race. Despite the small entrance, the space inside is a wide single floor, with only the center illuminated in the dim room. In the center of the floor is a ring. A fight between sweaty women is already underway. What's held here is mixed martial arts. And it's a well-known underground venue exclusively for female fighters. I've become obsessed with women's MMA. But please don't think I'm weird. I'm not looking at them in a lewd way, I'm moved by their serious dedication. Good, her match hasn't started yet. The match before my favorite fighters was still ongoing. I found a seat as close to the ring as possible, wiping the sweat from my brow. Having run from the station, I was sweating like I'd fought a match myself. The match in the ring concluded, and the winner's ring name was announced. The victorious and defeated fighters, both drenched in sweat, embraced on the ring, and applause and whistles filled the venue. I stood up and clapped as hard as I could. My interest in women's MMA began because of my sister. Now married with a child, she had been a shut-in during her middle and high school years, spending all day watching the internet in her room. I had witnessed my parents' struggles as they attended seminars for parents with similar issues and read countless books on the subject. About 4 years into her reclusive lifestyle, my sister suddenly came to my room one night. John, I have a favor to ask. It had been years since anything like this had happened, and I was surprised. But I also saw determination in her eyes that had been vacant for so long. My sister's eyes that have been hollow for a long time. At that moment, I sensed she was beginning to come out of her reclusive state. I didn't care if she didn't go to school. I always wished she would just come out of her room, have meals with the family, and watch TV and laugh with us. That alone would have been enough. One night, my sister came into my room with her laptop and showed me an article and videos from a site. The videos showed two young women fighting in a ring. They wore glamorous costumes and were engaged in intense battles that seemed like a mix of karate, pro wrestling, and boxing. Take me to see this. This? I was surprised by her unusual request and looked at her face again. I finally found it. Please, John. Okay. If it makes you happy, I'll take you. I went with my sister to the underground floor of a building where the fight club was held. That's the place I now visit regularly. My sister was enthralled by the matches. Seeing her cheer and pump her fists was like seeing a different person. I was stunned, watching her and the ring alternately. The next match features my absolute favorite fighter. She's beautiful, strong, and just so cool. Suddenly, the venue went dark, and a spotlight shone on a door in the corner. The fighter's ring name was announced, and she entered wearing a glittering mask that covered the upper half of her face. The cheers grew louder, echoing off the ceiling. Go Jessica! You can do it! My sister screamed. So, her name is Jessica. Jessica stepped into the ring, exuding confidence as she responded to the cheers. Her long hair curled and her sequin costume hugging her body. Her six-packs were visible. And her legs looked incredibly long under her mini skirt. She stood out far more than the other fighters, radiating an aura of her own. Though her face was partially hidden, it was clear she was stunning. When the match started, she lowered her stance to target her opponent's lower body. Her movements were incredibly fast, and her opponent was visibly bewildered. She grabbed her opponent's lower body, twisted them down to the mat, and quickly applied a joint lock, forcing her opponent to tap out. I think the match lasted barely a minute. The acrobatic moves, the swift kicks from her long legs, and the stark contrast with her appearance completely captivated me. According to my sister, Jessica was unbeatable, and everyone entered the competition just to try to defeat her. Hitting the face was strictly forbidden, and there were other strict rules, making it more of a show than a sport. But every fighter was deadly serious. At first, I was surprised that my sister became obsessed with martial arts. It was probably the same as being obsessed with celebrities or pop star. Eventually, my sister overcame her reclusiveness and truancy. She graduated from high school and is now married with a child. After getting married, she distanced herself from underground martial arts, and we stopped going to the matches together. Since then, I've been attending the matches alone. I became more engrossed in women's underground martial arts than my sister ever was. I kept this from my sister, but on weekdays without matches, I would go straight home after work and gather information about Jessica on my computer. On weekends, I would attend the matches. Recently, Jessica's first fan meeting was held. Hey, did you hear about Jessica's fan meeting? Are you going? My sister called me for the first time in a while. I could hear her baby crying in the background. Of course not. I only went with you. I'm not that interested. I see. I wanted to go to the fan meeting. I was hoping to hear about it if you went. My sister lives far away now. With a small child in the distance, she couldn't attend the fan meeting. I'm sorry for lying. After hanging up, I apologized to my sister in my heart. I had worked so hard to get a ticket for the fan meeting. The day before the event, I got a haircut, and ever since securing the ticket, I had been using facial masks after my evening showers. After all, I would not only see Jessica but also shake hands and talk with her. On the day of the event, the usual underground floor of the mixed-use building was transformed into the fan meeting venue. The line stretched outside the building. I knew she was popular, but this is incredible. The crowd seemed to be an even mix of men and women. I waited anxiously for my turn. I had never been a fan of anyone or dedicated myself to something like this before, so this feeling was entirely new to me. Finally, my turn came. There she was, Jessica, right in front of me. She wore the same makeup and costume she did when stepping into the ring. Of course, her face was partly covered by the sparkling mask, I wiped the sweat from my hands with a handkerchief and reached out to touch Jessica's extended hand. You are one of my most dedicated fans. I see you from the ring all the time. Jessica said this while firmly shaking my hand with both of hers. I was too nervous to speak. I couldn't believe she recognized me. You're my sister's savior. She was a shut-in and a truant, but your presence helped her turn her life around. She's married and happy now. My voice cracked with emotion. So that was your sister. I wondered why you started coming alone. I thought the person next to you was your girlfriend. I'm glad to hear that. Jessica must have enough presence of mind to observe the audience from the ring. She's truly amazing. I looked straight into the eyes behind Jessica's mask. My name is John. No matter what, I'll support you forever. Jessica smiled brightly upon hearing this. John, right? No matter what. For life? It's reassuring to have such a dedicated fan like you. Within the 1-minute time limit, I poured out my feelings. Even on the train ride home, I was floating in a dreamlike state. Honestly, I don't even remember how I got home. That night, I lay in bed, grinning at the selfie I took with Jessica, and fell asleep still feeling the softness of her hand. John, I need to talk to you. Mike approached me with an unusually serious look. Can you spare some time this Sunday? I know it's your day off, but I think we can talk more freely during the day. For a moment, I was at a loss for words. I had no work that Sunday, but I had planned to attend Jessica's match. Looking forward to this had kept me going through the week. Lately, especially after the fan meeting, my admiration for Jessica had intensified, though I still supported women's underground MMA as a whole. I wanted to remain a respectful fan and never cause her any trouble. Just having her as a source of inspiration was enough. John, you've been really motivated at work lately. Did you get a girlfriend? My boss and seniors had been saying this a lot recently. Attending Jessica's fan meeting and knowing that she recognized me had been a huge boost. Although the distance between the ring and the audience remained unchanged, and I had no intention of changing it, the thought of not wanting to show a pathetic side to Jessica naturally motivated me. While I was eager to cheer for Jessica, I felt I couldn't ignore Mike's request for a serious talk. Reluctantly, I decided to skip the match that day and spend it with Mike. Even though it was for a serious conversation, the venue was an okonomiyaki restaurant. Mike wanted to talk about requesting a transfer from his current department. Apparently, he wasn't getting along with his direct supervisor and was feeling mentally strained. I encouraged him to hang in there until the next annual transfer, as I might be relocated too. Mike quickly cheered up and started devouring the okonomiyaki. As I cooked more okonomiyaki for him, my mind drifted to the underground fight club. After spending the entire day with Mike, I trudged to work on Monday morning. Not only were my steps heavy, but so was my stomach from all the okonomiyaki. I wonder how Jessica's match went yesterday, although I doubt she lost. Even at work, my mind was full of thoughts of her. Mike, at his desk in the neighboring aisle, was smiling and working diligently. It's great that he's feeling better, but I want my time with Jessica back. The disappointment of missing Jessica's match lingered as I sat at my desk with my head in my hands. After a while, I looked up and saw some senior colleagues having a serious conversation. Did you hear? Sarah from the secretary department didn't show up for work this morning without notice. The secretary department is in an uproar. Sarah didn't show up without notice? There must be a serious reason for her to miss work without informing anyone. Her phone was unreachable all day, and she never showed up to work. After work, I brushed off Mike's invitation to grab a meal and rushed home to open my laptop. Jessica didn't use any social media, and being part of the underground scene, match results weren't publicly available. I searched desperately for any hidden information about Jessica. As I stared at my laptop, the doorbell rang. At this hour? I looked up from my computer and saw it was almost midnight. I wasn't expecting any deliveries. Yes, who is it? I answered the intercom. I'm sorry to bother you so late. This is Sarah. After a moment of silence, I heard a faint female voice. Sarah? Yes, I'm Sarah from the secretary department. Please, hide me. What? I quickly opened the door, and there she was, Sarah, unmistakably. But she was far from the polished figure I saw at work. Her clothes were torn, her long hair was disheveled, and her face bore several scratches. What happened? Why did you come to me? You said you'd support me no matter what, for life, remember? What? My mind was in a whirlwind, but I managed to calm myself and invited Sarah into my apartment. She collapsed onto the rug, and in front of her was my open laptop. When she saw the article about Jessica that I had been reading, she smiled despite her battered face. Last night, after the match, I was waiting for a taxi. When it arrived, I got in, but it took me to an unknown place. And I was beaten up in a dark room. I think it was fighters who can't beat me and their followers. They threw me out into the streets afterward. Sarah bit her lower lip as she spoke. Sarah, are you really the same person as the fighter Jessica? She nodded quietly. I couldn't believe that the super secretary everyone admired was also the top underground female fighter. How did you know where my apartment was? Your name and address were on the fan club list. When I saw you from the ring, I immediately recognized you as a colleague. I didn't know your name, but I recognized your face. I confirmed it by checking your name tag when we passed by each other. At first, I was worried about what to do. If the company found out, it would be a big problem. I earn a little fight money, too. The company was in an uproar today because you were absent without notice. My phone was broken, and more than anything, I didn't want the company to find out what I was doing. Fighting is my passion. I fetched the first aid kit from the closet and started treating Sarah's wounds. The disinfectant stung her face, making her grimace. Her expression looked like that of a mischievous kid, and as I applied the bandages, I couldn't help but chuckle. I have a favor to ask. Tomorrow morning, could you call the company and pretend to be my brother? Tell them I had an accident and couldn't contact anyone. Also, can I stay here tonight? Sure, but are you making me your accomplice? Didn't you promise to support me no matter what, for life? She looked into my eyes. I guess I did. She told me about how she was inspired by Gina Carano, a famous American female fighter, and started Muay Thai at 15 while living in the US. After work, she trains hard. She channels the stress from her job as the president's secretary into martial arts. I listened to her story all night. The next day, I called the company pretending to be her brother. Sarah returned to work 2 days later. That day, she walked through the department, apologizing to everyone. Now, everything is back to normal. Hey, John, I heard Sarah fell off her bike and got injured. It's surprising she rides a bike. Makes her seem more relatable. Mike whispered as he spotted Sarah walking down the hall. Really? As Sarah passed by, she gave me a discreet wink. That night, Sarah asked me to be her bodyguard and manager. I agreed, and now I train with her on weeknights and act as her cornerman during matches, wearing a mask. Thinking I truly know the real Sarah might be presumptuous, but it fuels my work motivation. Thanks to her, my previously dull life has become exciting. Tonight will be busy too. Determined to finish my work efficiently, I focused on the afternoon tasks with renewed energy.